Hello and welcome to Spectrum Projection, a media review podcast where we analyse characters who may fit into the autism spectrum. I'm Hannah, an actually autistic person with a master's in literature, focusing on the analysis of disability in fiction and in memoir.
And I'm Tilda, and I'm a horse that doesn't exist.
Trigger warnings in the description.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
God, we're too in sync. We're spending too much time together.
Yeah,
This is insane.
it's getting to that point.
So, what have you been doing? What have you been watching?
I got a new phone for the first time in 6 years, so that's exciting.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say the brand because I'm not sponsored.
not spot on. Yeah, we are not sponsored by anything. We do not have ads at this point, but maybe one day. Maybe if we sell up your phone enough, they'll sponsor us afterwards.
I don't want that though. I don't want to support insert phone company here.
Yeah, fuck that. There's not really much been going on. As with most people, we've been playing Dungeons and Dragons on the regular, in case you couldn't tell we were giant nerds. And that is about all I've been doing.
Yeah. I've been really obsessed with zoot suits lately. If you don't know shit, I'm gonna have to look this up later, but if you don't know what it is, it's a fashion style from I think the 20s or 30s. It was really popular in African American, Filipino, and Latino communities in America in like the war era, which was just these like massive, oversized, really high-waisted trouser suits, like suits that just used a lot of extra fabric just because, you know, it was something that was being rationed, so it was kind of rebellious to have these big baggy clothing. And obviously because it was non-white people doing it, people got beaten up over it. But the actual clothing are like really cool and really stylish, and I've been enjoying them a lot.
Yeah, it's cool. Like this is the kind of one of the few benefits of COVID times is that I feel like I've had so much more time to just go down rabbit holes for random things. Like I've learned so much stuff about random stuff I never would have looked up otherwise. Like I know way too many stupid murder mystery things now, and I've been revisiting a bunch of old YouTube content that I used to like when I was younger, which I'm going to warn you, listeners, this is a rare exception to the rule of it's always way worse than you remember it is. Like, whatever YouTube content you liked when you were a teenager that was really funny and the best thing ever, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's not. Badger is not that funny.
It's a little bit funny.
It's a little bit funny. But
it's... I've got a lot of Swedish memes that are like that. Some of them are just like horribly racist. Some of them are like, I don't know if it's racist, but it's like this old Flash video. It's like the actual Flash video is just like, you know, manipulating photos in like a really clip arty kind of way, which is shitty. But it's I don't know what language it is, but it's some sort of Middle Eastern song where they've subtitled it in what it sounds like they're saying in Swedish. And actually that one has some homophobia in it, so it is definitely problematic. But it's very funny when he goes hat baby, which sounds like he says hat baby, but I'm sure it means something else in the actual language that it's in. Anyway, never mind. Shut up, Tilda. Shut up.
No, I mean, like, you do raise a good point with like the whole homophobia thing, because what we're talking about today is a video series which is still pretty near and dear to my heart. It's ASDF movie, which was made by Tom Scarl and is still being made by Tom Scarl now. If you're surprised by that, you're not on YouTube as much as children. Unfortunately, children are the main target for most YouTube content these days. But ASDF movie, if you're not familiar, is a cartoon series that started in 2008. And I know, I feel very old.
That's more than 10 years ago.
Yeah, so thinking about it, I would have been, like 8. When that came out, you would have been...
Not 2008, what are you talking about?
No, I would have been 10 then.
I would have been 11 then.
God, yeah. So, you know, kids. 11 or 12.
12.
I'm bad at math. I'm bad at math, okay? I'm good at
analyzing. You would have been 10 in 2004.
I don't know.
So you...
Because
you were born in 1994.
I was born in 1996, dumbass.
Wait, shit, because you're 1 year younger than me. Why do I always get that one the wrong way around? Well, I'm always like, oh, someone who's 1 year younger than me, that means they're born in 1994, because 4 is 1 less than 5. I'm the dumbest fucking person.
Look, we have degrees in English, not in numbers. Numbers are for losers. But
numbers are for Tories, okay?
don't care about numbers. Point is, it's been a while. It's been about 12 years since the first ASDF movie, and the entire cartoon series is really recognisable by both just being black and white, very simple little like people that have no noses and just stand in a blank void and do visual puns mostly, which is the driest possible way of describing it. I have said it's made by Tom Scar. I need to make it extremely clear. Tom Scar is not an animator. It's something that comes up a lot. Other people animate the videos, but Tom Scar and the other people at Turbo Punch, Elliot and, oh god, Ed. Sorry, Ed, you introduced me to Tom for the video I helped on and I forgot your name. I'm sorry, Ed.
Oh, we're gonna, because Hannah's been like, he's coming up in the world. Are we gonna talk about that?
I mean, yeah, I think we should. The reason we brought ASDF movie up in the schedule, because we were always going to talk about it, because there is a very significant joke in ASDF movie, which I think has come up a few times when I've been talking about this idea with people. And basically what happened was Tom Scar recently released a storytime video, which is like an animated storytime video, it's exactly what it sounds like, called I'm Bad at Meeting Fans, which is about him meeting fans at conventions. Oh god, I do miss them. I used to hate them, but now I can't go. I miss them. But
I don't. I was always bored at cons.
But basically, the thing that Tom reached out and asked me to help on was to advise on his video on his second channel, Dark Squidge, which is called I Miss You, and it was talking about his experiences at conventions and dealing with fans. It was really, really nice to work with Tom. He was super, super interested in everything I had to say, and he took on board all the advice and asked questions, which is a nice change from when I've given advice and they've gone, cool, too much work, no thank you. Tom really did put in the effort to change it. So thank you, Tom. I appreciate you taking what I've said on board. I did ask him for a quote just because I got his permission for us to make this episode. So basically...
Wait, are we supposed to ask her for permission? Because we've been talking a lot of shit about Star Trek for someone who hasn't got permission.
I mean, this is more asking permission because it's a smaller thing. And
yeah.
obviously, like, since I just helped Tom out, I don't want to be like, cool, now I'm going to talk in depth about the history of this thing you started making 12 years ago.
Are you ready for us to overanalyze a stupid meme joke?
Basically, when I asked him, well, do you have any comments you want to make about the huge percentage of autistic fans that ASDF movie seems to have developed? His quote is, I'm just really glad that something I've made resonates with people. I've met a lot of friend groups and families with autistic members who have been able to connect by watching the series, and that might actually be the best thing to come out of the whole show. Thanks, Tom. That's really sweet. And it's true. A lot of the autistic people I know love ASDF movie, love quoting the jokes from ASDF movie. And the reason I was asked to help out in this video is because Tom presented this idea that whenever you're in a convention, as someone who is a public figure, meeting people, it's best to approach those situations like everyone you speak to is autistic. And by that he means taking that extra step of consideration of what would this person be comfortable with? What does this person understand about the situation that we're in? Because it is weird when you meet a celebrity in one of these situations. It's so stilted and strange.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know how to handle it. And conventions are stressful anyway. And, like, honestly, you should watch the video. It is excellent. I'm not just plugging it because we helped. It is a really interesting video.
What's the name of the video?
It's called I Miss You. And it's on the Dark Squidge YouTube channel. It would have been uploaded on the 22nd of January, I believe.
Yeah. Just so people can find it.
But it's definitely worth watching. Watch the Storytime one as well on the Tom Scar channel. That's pretty good. To go over ASDF, you wouldn't really know it from how we described it. But some of the really popular things from it are just running jokes that have become memes.
Yeah.
And so there's... Let me see, how many are there now? Because every time I check it feels like there's another one. There's now 13 ASDF movies.
Wow.
And the very early ones were very, like, crude, low budget, someone's first attempt at making a video. I think that's part of what the charm was.
It's got a lot of that, like, early Newgrounds charm where it's just, someone figuring out how to use Flash.
Yeah, and it's...
Rip Flash, by the way.
Yeah, rest in peace, Flash. Like, this is basically where this whole series took off. A lot of it is relies on stuff like anti-jokes. Like, one of the big ones from the first ASDF movie is someone walking up to a big button that's labelled pointless button, pressing it, and then nothing happens, and that's the whole joke.
And they go,
Yeah. And you know what? That is funny.
That is really funny.
I mean, there is also the thing of, again, we're doing this thing where it's, like, impossible to analyse jokes, because analysing a joke immediately kills a joke.
Yeah, I think we've accepted that our retelling of these jokes isn't going to be funny.
Yeah.
Because that's just not how comedy works.
I will say your point of saying, like, the things that you look up from that era of the internet are homophobic is relevant to ASDF movie, because it was coming out at the point where, like, for people who don't remember, like, gay was a punchline for a while in the mid-2000s.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't, like, actively hateful in the way that, like, open bigotry is, but it was still, like, the punchline to some of the jokes are, you know who's gay? You. And then they get hit by a train or something. Like,
it's like, what is that? I feel like it's a meme that got, like, co-opted by the LGBT queer community. The whole, like, it's like a photo of, like, a man and a dog, and 1 out of 3 people are gay. Well, I'm not gay. Well, I'm not gay. And then they both look at the camera. Which started out as a very sort of, you know, homophobic joke, but has then been co-opted by the actual community to just...
Yeah, it's true. It's like, I've never seen anyone who's straight use the doctor, I think I might be a homosexual. How can you tell? And he vomits rainbows. I've only ever seen queer people use that gif in, like, a fun, happy way. At least recently. I think before it probably was used in a more derogatory way, but, like, it's weird how the context of those jokes has kind of shifted around them.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of relevant to the main thing I want to bring up, because you might be wondering, okay, if it's a bunch of random little sketches all stapled together, how does the autistic angle come into it at all? And it comes into it in the form of one of the really big running jokes that became very popular. It got its own song and everything, is the I like trains joke. The entire joke is this character who is male, stares at the camera and says, I like trains, and then they get hit by a train.
Or someone else get hit by a train. Like, as the joke develops, there will be, like, different situations where, I think it's one where, like, a lady is getting robbed, and then suddenly there's this kid there, and he goes, I like trains. And then the robber gets run over by a train.
Yeah, it is funny, because the suddenness of it is really there, but, like, I should say, like, a lot of these jokes do tend to veer on the dark side. As much as it's, like, an animated thing, it is not for young kids. There are jokes about suicide and murder and, like, pretty gross shit. You're filling the face.
I'm just thinking about the whole everybody do the flop.
Oh yeah, and the guy falls off a building.
It's so fucking terrible. But
and there's also ones like,
but it's really funny.
Susie, I want to take you to prom. It's like, I can, I'm a ghost. But you're not dead. And she shoots herself in the face, and then her ghost flies away saying, bye, Brian.
Again.
It's shocking, but in a way that's, like, not offensive. Like, it's just, like, it's in a way that it's, like, it's just unexpected as opposed to
I think
offensive.
the comedy comes from how casual it is about the horribleness of it. Like, again, that girl shooting herself in the face, and then her tiny, adorable ghost just floats away like, bye, Brian.
I mean, the same thing applies to, like, I would say the biggest thing to come out of ASDF movie, which is the muffin time. Muffin time!
I love that muffin so much. It's so funny to me.
The muffin, you probably would know, not from ASDF movie necessarily, but from the Muffin Time song, which is this muffin singing how it wants to die over and over again. And it is catchy as shit.
That song is really catchy. And in the actual, you know, YouTube series or whatever, it's like the running joke of this muffin just wanting to be eaten and saying in a very adorable voice how much it wants to die.
Why won't anyone eat me? I just want to die.
Why won't you eat myself away? And it's hysterical. I find it so funny.
Yeah, and, like, Muffin Time's really grown. Like, I have the Muffin Time game, not Spawn. I haven't played it yet because there's a pandemic and it's a card game, and sharing cards, not possible. Like, I was so sad because I kickstarted that game and I was so excited to play it, and then the pandemic hit just as I got my copy.
Perfect timing.
It was devastating. But my point is, like, that joke about I like trains is pretty dark, but also, like, I think you can say fairly that it's based on a stereotype of autistic people that people weren't aware of being a real stereotype at that time. Like, it was definitely a stereotype for autistic people. People did know it as that. The whole autistic people like trains is the most default special interest possible for anyone who's autistic. And, like, the thing that gets to me is that, like, I don't really think that it's necessarily hurtful because, like, there's too little there for them to build anything offensive out of that.
Yeah.
It's just a thing that tracks with that, but...
Tracks! Like train tracks.
Yeah, still don't like train tracks.
See, this episode is going to be funny, even though we have to dissect a bunch of frogs.
The I like trains thing, did have its own song, and in that song I feel like they do build on it a little bit in a way where you could kind of have that reservation of like, oh, is this okay, is this not okay, because the song sings about like how the I Like Trains kid didn't speak anything until the first time he spoke, and he said I like trains and killed everyone in the room with a train. And then they put him on Ritalin, and that fixed it for a while. And then when he was getting married, he said, I like trains again, and killed his wife and the pastor and everyone in the church. And, like, it's very obviously an absurdist joke. But, like, the fact that, like, the story, in quotes, goes down that road and makes you think of that comparison more. I think there is a, like, element of disconnect because things have changed so radically in the autistic, like, cultural public view since 2008. Which was not that long ago, but I would say the public standing of autism has changed dramatically since then.
2008 both feels like not a long time ago and an extremely long time ago at the same time.
Yeah, it's like, at that point, gay was like a funny insult you could use on people. Like, there was, not necessarily you could, but it was more that it was more okay. People didn't really, you know, have so much discomfort with it. Autistic was also a really common insult on the internet at that point. Like, you're autistic, or why are you being autistic whenever you're doing something stupid? The same way people use the R word. But, like...
It's so weird because that was the era when I started using the internet and when I started, like, going on English language, the internet. So much of me learning English was... Those weird jokes came baked into my learning of English. I think this is going to be, like, kind of terrible, but... When I first heard the F slur, or read the F slur, it was in a YouTube comment without any context, and I just thought it was like, you know, a funny way of calling someone stupid. And I think I probably used it at some point in, like, my own YouTube comments, with literally no idea what it meant. I thought that it meant the same thing as the Swedish word that is very similar, which is just a name of a music instrument. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was like calling someone a tuba. Oh, you're such a tuba, because you're stupid.
Yeah, like, that is the thing about, like, these communities around these YouTube videos. Like, you don't realise, like, everyone's experiences around them, or, like, why they find the joke funny. Like, again, a lot of people who are autistic find that I Like Trains joke funny without necessarily picking out all of this angle of, like, oh, is this about someone who's autistic then? Because, like, the kid does die in most of the versions of this joke. But, like... Again, it's so minimalist. It's hard to, like, read beyond that. And I think it's, like, that subversion does still work. The main reason I wanted to talk about this isn't necessarily the I Like Trains thing itself. It's the fact that it is so overwhelmingly popular with people who are on the autism spectrum. Like, I do not know many people who are on the spectrum who haven't seen these videos and love them and can quote a bunch of the jokes off the top of their head. My brother can quote almost every single video without pausing. He's a big fan of Desmond the Moon Bear. Mm-hmm. He's a big fan of There's No Dog There and the two guys yelling, oh, at each other.
That is a really good joke.
Oh wait, this isn't a camera, when someone's like, say cheese, and they shoot someone in the face, like, oh wait, this isn't a camera. Like, stuff like that. He loves. Also a big fan of Mind Turtle. I think I had a cuddly Mind Turtle at one point. I don't know what happened to it.
Mind Turtle is pretty solid as well.
I'm just listing jokes at this point, but, like, there's so many things where it's just, like, that kind of nervousness around talking to other people. Like, at that point, internet culture was, like, the cool, savvy thing. Like, knowing a YouTube video that went viral or a Newgrounds video that went viral was, like, the thing that got you in with the other slightly nerdy kids who, like, had that insight.
It was such a schoolyard thing. Like, have you seen the latest YouTube video that is really popular? And in that time, because this is when we were young and people didn't have, you know, smartphones because those didn't exist yet, and you had to, like, gain access to one of the school's 2 computers so you could show someone a YouTube video.
Or you could go to someone else's house and they had a study which had a computer in it, and you would sneak up there and turn their shitty speakers down just enough that their parents wouldn't hear you listening to stuff that was not okay for kids to watch, especially at that point when people were, like, hyper vigilant.
Do you remember Happy Tree Friends?
Fortunately,
that's messed me up as a kid. Like,
yeah, that's the other thing that I was saying. Like, a lot of this content, like ASDF movie, I think holds its ground in the fact that it is so simplified.
Yeah,
like the violence in ASDF movie is so obviously a cartoon that even kids that are a little bit too young to really handle it can kind of compartmentalize it as, oh, it's a cartoon. Whereas in other ones, it's like, it's too much of a
Happy Tree
joke.
Friends is like, the entire joke is that it's, oh, these adorable Animal Crossing looking characters, and the gore is like so overly rendered and hyper realistic. And I'm sure some people genuinely find that funny, and I respect it as an art form. But God, if it fucking didn't mess me up as a kid when I came across those videos and when people insisted on showing me those videos.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, with ASDF movie, it was like a really easy call and response kind of thing. Like, there's so many little, like, one-line things that you could say to another person and be like, we're having a fun conversation now. We're getting along. We both are in on the joke. We have a connection. And that's, like, a big part of why I think it was so popular. Like, if I said, I like your hat, thanks, I was being sarcastic. Well, I stole your face. And the guy slaps his empty face. Like, stuff like that. Stuff like throw the cheese. Or I want to go to the moon, and then the guy kicks this little girl so
Why
hard,
wait?
just kicks her onto the moon. Like, it's the kind of thing where it's like, you don't need to have a really nuanced delivery for people to remember how funny that joke is.
Yeah.
And it's short fire enough that you can just memorize it and shoot it off, and people will be in a good, happy mood, and they will laugh with you, not at you, because the joke is funny. And, like, I think that's a big part of it. Like, there is an inbuilt community to a lot of these internet videos of people, like, feeling like they're in on some inside joke, even if 8 million people are in on that inside joke. It feels like a connection if someone else has seen it.
There are a lot of internet memes like that. Like, I told the story on the podcast that one time we went to our local nerd shop, and someone complimented my shoes, my Doc Martens. And I was like, oh, thanks. And then I looked down and they were also wearing Doc Martens. And without thinking about it, like with no hesitation, no like justification, I went, oh, same hat. And they went, same hat. And it was a very...
Sheer joy.
Very sort of, generation bonding.
We have a community here.
And I realized later, like out of context, someone who listened to that and don't know about the same hat meme, that conversation, that exchange must have seemed fucking ludicrous. I like your shoes. Oh, thank you. Oh, same hat.
But that's the thing, though. Like, the same hat thing instantly dissolves any kind of tension about, like, what kind of tone is in that conversation. Like, as someone who is so worried about all conversations, if someone walked up to me and said, I like your shoes, and we have the same shoes, I'd be like, and I'd have to pick from, like, a rolling list of pre-prepared questions, but because I didn't know this conversation was coming, I wouldn't know what to say. But because I can just shoot off a meme and they can be like, oh, yeah, and they already have the context for that.
Yeah.
It takes all of that pressure off.
And if they say, I like your shoelaces, you run in the opposite direction.
Yeah, fuck that. It's so many things in it that just work in terms of, like, skipping some of that awkwardness, and I think that's why there's such a strong fan community around these conventions that Tom was talking about in his video. It's like, there is that instant sense of connection, there is that instant sense of, you know what you find funny, and being funny is like the best way to feel like you're friends with someone, because it immediately makes everyone's happy. If someone doesn't get it, you just tell another really quick fire joke and we're all back on board. Nobody's going to think that you mean something else because they all know what you're referencing. And also, ASDF movie's super accessible. Like, there is no level of, like, you need to know X, you need to be familiar with Y. Like, a lot of the really big YouTube series from that era were, like, Machinima and stuff, but I didn't get into those because I didn't have the money for video games, so I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. Like, I didn't get into Red vs. Blue because I didn't have an Xbox and I didn't know what Halo was. And I couldn't get into, like, a bunch of other stuff because it was a very weirdly segregated time of the internet where it's like, girls don't watch game content, or, you know... That changed as I got a little bit older, but...
I just remember being a young child and watching fucking... shipping, like... AMVs of Kids Next Door. set to a bunch of trashy, like, Europop and, like, Latino pop. And it was, like, my jam for a while there. Like, holy shit.
Oh, to be a kid with no shame again. Just to enjoy whatever the fuck you want to enjoy. What a rush that must be.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to be able to do that still. And, like, ASDF movie, I feel like it's well known enough among enough people that you aren't really, like, risking too much by, like, shooting off a more well-known joke from it to try and, like, connect with people. It's like, oh, have you seen that video with, Beep Beep I'm a Sheep? Or whatever. And it's like, if they haven't, you can play, like, the song in, like, 2 seconds and they'll get what you mean. Like, it's a really easy, like, fallback reference thing. It's like, oh, I don't feel like I'm being funny or likable. I'll play a funny and likable YouTube video. Like, honestly,
this is like going to be the main use of, like, you know, wearable technology. Like, everyone's going to just have like a Teletubby style screen on their stomach, and it's like, I'm not very funny. I'm just gonna play a YouTube video on my stomach and be funny by proxy.
And I mean, I think there's like a lot of people would see that as a problem of like people being too reliant on something else to make them like get through a conversation. But I call bullshit on that because like if it makes it easier, if conversation is stressful for you and breaking the ice is terrifying, because like it is terrifying. It's a new situation that's always a really big uphill struggle, autistic or not. For you to have that kind of safety net, I think is wonderful. I think it's great.
Yeah. And also, like, that's the point of technology, is making things easier. You could easily argue as well that, you know, why do you need a phone? Just shout really loudly and reach to talk to someone really far away. Isn't it cheating that you can just click on a button on your little device and talk to someone normally?
Yeah.
Just shout.
Yeah, God. I probably will end up going into like prosthetics and stuff as a concept because I wrote a big portion of my dissertation on that. It's separate to my expertise on autism. But like, I have a lot of issues with anybody who feels like it's any of that damn business, how people cope with their disabilities, visible or not. Just let people fucking live, whatever makes them
mind
comfy.
your fucking business. The world is so difficult to live in. I don't understand people who are so fucking snoopy about other people's shit. Just mind your business.
Like, this is something I kind of wanted to bring up because I think this episode would be a really good opportunity for us to do something a bit different. Building off of Tom Scar's own video on the Dark Squidge channel, I wanted to try and give some people who are autistic some advice for conventions, because his video was really good at giving advice for general convention etiquette and running a stall. But if you're someone who is autistic who wants to attend a convention and is kind of worried about it, or somebody who tried it before the pandemic and now the pandemic's been going on for a while, you feel like maybe you could build up the confidence to try it again after all this is over, this is your place to come and ask for that advice, because I know that a lot of the advice online is really fucking condescending and we're not about that. Like, you're not a child, you're not a parent who's escorting an autistic child around a convention floor. You are an adult, you have things you want to do.
Or an older kid, I guess.
Or an older kid, you're an independent person. And if you want to try and get yourself around a convention, even if you want to go around with someone else, it's good to know what's coming so you're less anxious. So, we've done a few conventions. I've done more than you, I think.
Yeah. And also, all of my conventions, apart from a few that's been here in the UK with you, have been in Sweden when I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. And it was a long time ago. And most of those cons have like closed now because that whole cottage industry kind of ran out of steam after a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
At least in Sweden,
that is my first piece of advice, is like look into the convention you're considering going to before you go. See what kind of things they've done, see what kind of scale it is. Do not make your first convention one of the really big ones if you can. Try and go to a smaller, more local one if you can. Because my first convention was also my first complete sensory overload. Because I went to the London Comic-Con convention. I actually went to go see Tom Scar at my first convention, and I didn't make it. Because on the train there, I got so panicked and overwhelmed that I passed out on the train. I was like, I must be hungry. And then I didn't think about it again.
I think this was before you got your diagnosis, right?
Oh, well before. This was before I was even diagnosed with anxiety. So I was like, that's weird. I had a mini heart attack and passed out.
Huh, probably nothing.
Probably nothing. Also, all these crowds make me want to die. Be aware of that. Be aware of like all of the angles when you're going to a convention. Not just being in the convention hall, which is still an important thing. Know where you can go, know where there might be some more space outside, know where you want to try and visit inside. But think about how you're getting there and how you're getting back. Because you will only have so much battery power for social or crowded spaces in a day. That's fine. That's your limit. Think about how much energy you have left to travel back as well as to spend time there. Because getting back is exhausting. People don't talk about it, but like by then you've bought like a ton of merch and you're carrying everyone's stuff and you're probably carrying the coat you brought with you and you're tired and you're sweating, you just want to go lie down, but you still have to travel home. And if you're having to travel
or to a hotel
or to a hotel, do get a hotel if you can. If it's an out of the way con, it saves you a lot of hassle and stress with travel. But that's the kind of thing you need to consider, because if you know that your energy is going to be drained by being in a really crowded place, or because you want to meet a particular celebrity or something and you know that's going to take up a lot of energy from you, don't push yourself harder than you feel like you're capable of handling. This isn't like an endurance thing, and no one's going to think less of you if you can't do a full day. If you can only go for the morning or you can only go for the afternoon, that's fine.
let me tell you, because I'm not a big con goer, but I have enjoyed the cons way more that I've gone to with you, where we literally we go in, we have like a look around and look at all the things we're interested in, and then we just leave. Like when I was a kid, because whenever I wanted to go to a con, I would be traveling like to a completely different county, because all the big cons were like in the, the big cities across the country. So you would go for like the whole weekend, and you would go there every day and be at the con for the whole day. And it was kind of exhausting and unpleasant, and I didn't really have a fun time. But now, when we go together, we just do whatever we want to do, and then we leave. And even if we're just there for like 2 hours, we have a way more satisfying experience, because we don't value the con experience based on how much time we spend there, but rather like how much we enjoy it.
Yeah, make it about what you want to do. Do not make it into I want everyone else to know what I've done at the con. I want everyone else to see that I had a great time and saw loads of things. Like, just do it on your own terms.
Yeah.
Like, know what you want to see.
And also
keep like a really clear idea of, I want to make sure I see this stall, I want to go to this place, I want to try and do this event. Have that list ready to go.
And also, this is something that I've had to think about with life in general. Just because you pay for something doesn't mean you have to like optimize. Like, I have to get the most time or the most amount out of it. You pay for something, and you should optimize enjoyment, not like quantifiable time spent on the thing. Yeah, when I would go into like an event, I would feel the need to stay there for the whole time just to quote unquote get my money's worth. Whereas now I'm trying to think about it as I'm paying to have as much fun as I can, and when I've had that fun, I'll just bounce.
I mean, I will also say, this is more to do with, like, if you've never been to a convention, and I mean, you don't have any experience with it, do not worry about what other people say you should do at conventions. You do not have to dress up. You do not have to bring anyone with you. You do not have to go in a big group costume. You don't have to even go to any events if you don't want to. If you just want to go around the stalls and buy some art, or just look at stuff and buy nothing, you can do that.
Yeah.
No one cares if you're not in a costume. And I know that's like a concern a lot of people have when they've never been before, because that's the stereotype that everyone dresses up. If you are going to a convention, don't just wear comfortable shoes. Think about everything you wear. And if it's something that you feel like, oh, it's been a really long day and that seam on those jeans is going to start annoying me, or like, God, that shirt always gets really sweaty and horrible when I've been wearing it too long, try and just dress comfortably for like a long day.
100% keep temperature in mind, because cons always get super sweaty. Like, even if it's in the middle of winter, when you enter that con building, it's immediately gonna become like blazing hot for some reason. So think about layers and think about comfort.
Yeah, it's the thing of like, even if you wear the most boring mum jeans and like ugly ass like comfort shoes, nobody's going to care. If you want to dress up, I would recommend bringing at the very least backup shoes that don't necessarily go with your outfit but are comfortable. Like, your comfort needs to come first. And in that sense, do not feel like anyone is owed social interaction from you at a con. You do not have to hang out with anyone you meet. You don't have to carry on with a conversation with anyone who strikes one up with you. It is a really good place to meet people. People will be more chatty because obviously everyone's into similar things.
Yeah.
But like, if someone approaches you and you don't want to talk to them, you can walk away.
Man, I wish I had learned that lesson when I was young. I have one story, but it's not terrible, but it's like bad. Should I just run through?
Yeah, well, I will
save
say,
it for the end.
I will say you can say it now, but I will say, for the sake of like anyone who might be worried about it, Tilda's fine. There was no assault.
I didn't even realize that anything had happened until literally years later. When I was like 16, 17, I looked back at this event and realized what actually happened. But at the time, I literally had no idea. I was 14. It was my first con. I think it was called UppCon, because it was in Uppsala, Sweden, which is a town near Stockholm. And I was there with a couple of friends who I don't hang out with anymore because we pretty much had nothing in common aside from watching anime.
The high school experience.
Or was it my second con? I don't remember.
One of your early ones, yeah.
Because I need to explain what I was wearing, because it's kind of important. At this time, when I was 14, I would wear super baggy jeans, really massive t-shirts. I would go for like that kind of weird skater boy thing, where like you have a long sleeve striped shirt and then like a black t-shirt on top. But yeah, I was a 14-year-old girl who looked like a 12-year-old boy, basically. And we were, hanging out with people. We met some people from DeviantArt who we had like talked to online and stuff like that. And I don't remember how this person approached me, but at one point, this grown man, I think he was in his 20s at the time, but to me he registered as like an adult, like my dad adult. He was dressed in a military camouflage jumpsuit with a little beret. He had blonde curly hair and a beard. So he looked like just a full-on adult. And we started chatting, and I thought we were like being friends. We were having like a friendly interaction and stuff. And at one point we went to they had like a little game room where they had like a bunch of board games and stuff, and we played Othello against each other. And in this conversation, he casually asked me, "Oh, you're 18, right?" And I was like, "No," because to me that was ludicrous, and still it's ludicrous to me that he could have even pretended to think I was 18 because I was so clearly a 14-year-old.
And also wearing baggy clothes that hid any chance.
I looked like such a fucking child. But again, this didn't register me weird at the time. And I can remember the look in his eye when he was like, "Oh," which I don't understand. I don't understand how he could even pretend to think I was 18. But I just continued talking to him because I thought we were being friendly and making friends. It didn't even occur to me that this could be anything other than a buddy conversation. Mm-hmm. So he must have read that as a signal that, oh, it's okay to keep engaging with this 14-year-old in this way. At one point, we were like bantering about this game. I was, I'm gonna beat you. And he said, you're gonna use your feminine wiles on me. And I went, I don't have those. Because I was like a little tomboy. And again, he clearly was kind of taken off guard by that. Like, again, trying to get like an in, trying to clearly, quote unquote, flirt with me. And I literally didn't pick up on anything. Because some other stuff happened. I think at one point he must have caught on to the fact that I was
never going to be able to
or
reciprocate,
like I got awkward just hanging around because he talking to him because he was a grown man that I didn't have anything in common with. And then years and years later, as I was walking on from the school bus, it was a sunny day, I remember stopping in the road and being like, wait, he was this 20-something-year-old was trying to flirt with me as a 14-year-old child who he knew was 14. And fuck.
I mean, this story's not supposed to frighten you, but it is the thing of like, if anyone says anything to you that makes you uncomfortable, that you don't want to engage with, you can walk away.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you're forced by politeness to like sit and spend time with them. There are security at most conventions. If you're uncomfortable, you can always go to them and say like, would you mind helping me out? I feel unsafe.
And again, at the time, I didn't feel threatened at all in this situation because I didn't understand what was happening. It's like in retrospect, I kind of just find it amusing because, wow, this creepy guy must have been really confused because he, for some reason, thought I was flirting with him. That's another thing. If anyone who listens to this, who is like an older person, 18 plus or whatever, who is for some reason interested in 14-year-olds and is deluded into thinking that a 14-year-old can consent. Like, first of all, fuck you. But second of all, it's likely that if you think you're reading quote-unquote signals from this child that they are interested in you, they might not understand that that's the conversation you're having. This man did not register to me as like anything other than like an adult who I was having I thought about him as I did my dad, who was like 40, 50 years old. And he was in his 20s. So you think, oh, I'm in my 20s. I'm young. Whatever. We're about the same age. No, you're an adult, and they see you as an adult, and they're not interested.
I will say this is why it's really important to try and go with people, not by yourself, if you're concerned about misreading these kind of conversations, or like just concerned about people perhaps like making you uncomfortable, or any number of things. Try and go with people. It's more fun with people anyway. But just try and like go with people and make it really clear, like, I only really want to do XYZ, I don't really want to do much else, or like if I feel really overwhelmed, I'll say this. Like, just try and have those contingencies. At the very least in the UK, we have this thing called the sunflower lanyard, which is like a sign of, I have an invisible disability, can you take that into account? If you feel comfortable doing it, I do recommend like wearing a badge or having like a card you can give to people when you're queuing up to do something to say, I am autistic, I'm uncomfortable with XYZ, or just trying to like explain it to whoever's there. Because in the most cases, people will understand. If you're going to meet a celebrity and you'd feel very uncomfortable with being touched, or you're really nervous about what to say, if you can try and explain that beforehand, they will be fine with that. I was lucky enough to meet David Tennant back before I got my diagnosis. He was doing one of the photo sessions, which are very quick. Like, you go over, you say hi, and you have a quick conversation, and they take a photo with you. It's the best photo of me that exists, and I can't use it for fucking anything. But basically, I was really nervous, and I wasn't diagnosed at that point. But I think the person running it could tell, because he's like, "Do you want to just like stand next to him, because you don't have to touch if that makes you uncomfortable?" So no, it's fine. I was not fine, but I didn't understand it at that point.
Oh.
But like, for the most part, if you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't really feel comfortable doing that," or whatever, they will understand. Most conventions, they will try and get people to ask first anyway. But if that's a problem for you, always be prepared to say, "Oh, sorry, I'm not really big on touching. Would you mind if we just do a pose?" Or try and have what you want them to say or sign pre-prepared. If you're getting something signed, the thing that I've always done, because I've been to a few book signings, bring a post-it note, write the spelling of your name, and anything else you'd want them to put in the book on the post-it note. So that way, even if you get to the front and you get super anxious and you completely lose the ability to speak, they will know what you want them to write, and they will have something to say to you, because they will be able to read what you've put on your post-it note.
Yeah.
It's not your fault if you get overwhelmed, because it is overwhelming. It's like the most information you can get at once is a convention hall. I will warn, do not do any conventions where it feels like they've oversold tickets. Because it's a big problem in London, because routinely they use venues that are not really well suited to having a ton of like trader tables, and they will sell more tickets than they really can be accommodated, and they get crowded all through the day, all the time, constantly. And it's very hard to find space. Some cons do try and have quiet side areas for people who have disabilities or young children. You can't particularly rely on those, because they sometimes end up just getting swarmed by people anyway. It's always good to try and have like a backup if I need to get out, where's my nearest exit kind of knowledge on you. In terms of more positive stuff, instead of just like panic stations, I would recommend, if you don't know what to do at a convention, always hit the artist's gallery.
Always. The artist alley is always a great time.
Like, the celebrity stuff and the photo ops can be a bit disappointing and a bit expensive for what they are.
And I deeply do. I never care about like the lectures and stuff like they will do at cons. I've never gone to a convention where I'm like, "Oh, I want to listen to this lecture by whoever." Never.
I've been to one or two, but it's always on very specific things. If you want to do that, buy a ticket, get into your seat.
Yeah.
Watch it. It's no big. It's not scary. They might do audience questions, but there's no pressure to stand up and do them, because there's always a huge line anyway. So if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you don't necessarily have to line up and ask anything.
Yeah.
But artist gallery is easily the best part of every convention I've been to. I mean, Tom Scar's bit might have been the best bit of that one I went to where I passed out before I went in. I don't know, I never met the guy. Now I probably will not get a chance to, because I no longer live in London.
Yeah.
But maybe in the future.
So we talked about this a bit earlier when we were discussing this episode, because I'm an artist, but I've never done a con. I've been thinking about it, but then the corona hit, and who knows. But what are you supposed to say? What can you say when you are like standing in front of like an artist's table and stuff like that? And this is, I think, very personal, because there are you see some like memes online with like irritating questions or questions that artists are uncomfortable with that I don't recognize at all, and then some stuff that they will say that, "Oh, this is fine," and I will be like, "No, that I wouldn't like that." But one of the classic ones is that that a lot of people will do with artists in any context is to go, "Oh God, I could never draw anything like that. I'm so bad at drawing. I couldn't draw a stick figure." And I've never met anyone who finds that interaction enjoyable at all. I'm kind of neutral about it, because on some level I don't really care about your feelings. And like, "Oh, you think you're bad at drawing? Oh, well,
Practice then.
You seem fine otherwise, so I guess you're okay." But other artists I've heard find that sort of very uncomfortable.
Yeah, because it's very much turning the conversation into a, "Oh, your art's nice, but feel sorry for me because I can't do it."
Yeah.
So if you're at an artist's table, try and make it about the good they do, as opposed to about yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not really a hard and fast rule. You can say about how much you like something they've drawn, and how, if it's of a show you like or something, you can say like, "Oh yeah, I really love this part of that show." Like, try and connect it to their art and why you like it.
And here's one thing. this is something that I have heard from like people at Artist Alice, that a lot of people, they feel weird when someone come up to their table and like just look around and then say nothing and leave. Like, because I've been at the other end of that interaction where I feel like I'd be rude if I was like saying anything, like I don't want to bother them. But I feel for a lot of people it's the other way around. You do want that interaction, even if you're not buying anything, you know, making eye contact and, you know,
saying a quick hello and saying,
Yeah.
oh, have you been busy today? Or
yeah,
like,
just making a bit of chat.
just asking if they've seen anything that's been set up around the convention. Like, one of my big ones is always like, make note of something really noticeable in the front hall or a costume you really like, so you have that like point of reference to it. It's like, oh, have you seen the person dressed up as Mary Poppins? Or did you see that giant transformer outside the convention hall on the way in?
Or sometimes you hit the jackpot and the artist themselves is wearing a cool cosplay.
Yeah,
And
always good.
So even if you're not buying anything, you can compliment their outfit or, you know, something like that.
Like, it's only small stuff, but it's like they are having a really long day there. And especially if you're in the artist alley and you're an indie artist who doesn't have an established fan base, it can be a pretty like disheartening day for much of it. If people don't interact with you and don't seem to be buying much after spending time looking at it and then deciding, no, that can really hurt.
Yeah.
It's not that you have to buy something every time you pause and look, but like at least interacting with someone to show that you care about the fact that they're making things and it maybe just isn't for you personally, because that happens all the time. You'll run across artists who are really talented and make amazing art, but it's about stuff that you don't really know anything about.
Or you're on a budget or whatever. Here's one trick. This is like one of my fondest memories from like going to an artist alley. We went to a convention like local to our area, and there was this artist who had a bunch of, you know, postcard sized artworks. And I noticed it was this picture of a squid mermaid and this sort of, you know, God, what's it called? It's a Harajuku style where you have a bunch of like, you know, hairpins and stuff in your hair. I forget what it's called, but two illustrations. And she mostly had fan art, but she had these two illustrations. And I asked her, oh, are those your original characters? And she said, yeah, in a tone of voice where it seemed like she would think that would make me completely lose interest immediately. And when I bought those two illustrations, she got really happy. So you don't have, again, you never have to buy anything. You're never obligated to buy anything. But it can mean a lot to artists when you show appreciation for their non-fan art. I've brought some really cool posters and stuff over the years from cons, which weren't of anything other than just like a cool illustration of, you know, some cool anime girl or whatever. And I feel like a lot of artists do appreciate, if they have the courage to, you know, put some of the original stuff among all the fan art, they will really appreciate the attention to that art.
Just taking notice of it. Like, it is something I've started doing since that con, of just like having a budget of like, not a lot, like for postcards and stuff you really don't need a lot, but like having a budget set aside of £5-10 of like, if I see someone's original art and I like it, I'm not going to make any excuses. I'm going to buy it and I'm going to try and like make a collection of original art. Because it's nice to have, like, fandoms come and go. I'm sorry guys, it's true. Fandoms won't be there forever. But like, cute art will be cute art forever. If you go off that fandom and you have to throw that away, it would be a shame, but you can still have that art.
Yeah. I've gotten way less stingy with like what I buy at artist alleys. Part of that is that I'm an adult now with a disposable income.
And no one to stop you.
Exactly. But it's a lot more fun now that I can just show appreciation for people with my money.
This is a big part, and it is something Tom mentioned in his video as well. Bring cash, do not rely on card. I know it's scary to carry cash around with you, but if there is a cash machine at the con, it will run out of money. If it doesn't run out of money, the queue will be 1,000,000 miles long. Bring cash. Most people cannot process cards, and if they can, the systems will go down because they are very busy.
And a lot of people will be relying on kind of, you know, cheap stuff because that's the only thing they can afford. And those are, you know, even more unreliable.
Yeah, having a card reader is kind of a luxury that most of the vendors of these kind of things won't be able to afford. And again, they'd be relying on the local Wi-Fi and everything, which will be overloaded by a bunch of nerds doing stuff. So
probably
bring cash, bring more cash than you think you need. If you have a budget, just bring the exact amount of cash that you're comfortable spending. But do not feel like you can travel around the con with the expectation of getting more cash out later easily.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work out, and it will cause you a lot less stress in the long run, trust me. You can't usually bring food and drink into conventions. They tend to be pretty strict about that. if you can slip a bottle of water or something in the bottom of your bag, do. But, like, they're pretty strict about bringing in proper meals and stuff.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the food in conventions is notoriously awful and expensive.
Oh my god. I had the most disgusting burger I've ever had in my life at a con. It was grey and just swimming in grease.
Ugh, that's convention food.
Fascinating.
I had a sandwich that had no butter and had, like, a tomato and a single slice of cheese in it. It was terrible.
Oh, that kind of wet cheese, right?
Yeah. But yeah, convention food's not super reliable. If you're someone who's got really strict dietary needs, then keep that in mind. You probably won't be allowed to sneak food in unless you're pretty sneaky about it. Sometimes they will check your bags at some of these. That's completely normal, just as like a security thing. Some of them will be really like jobs worthy and will throw away food and stuff, so just be prepared for that. Don't bring anything that's like precious that you desperately want to keep.
No luxury chocolates.
Don't bring import food or anything. You can usually buy it at conventions if you really want to, but like they're still pretty strict about it.
Some pocky.
I will also say be prepared to be disappointed sometimes when you go to conventions. It is a pretty common thing that with conventions that the floor will get flooded with very boring commercial crap.
Yeah.
Like Pop Vinyl's the new one that's really like taking
I
over.
hate pop vinyls with a fucking passion.
They're not good.
They are not good. They're so ugly and so lame.
And there's also a lot of like stolen art or really cheaply made clothes or prints that are just clearly like copy and pasted and put on very cheap paper. Like there will be a good chunk of the floor that's just stuff that you aren't interested in, and that's normal. Just try and make the most out of like going around a con, seeing what you can, making what experiences you can. Do try and be open to meeting other people. If there's fan meetups, see if it's something you're interested in. No one will expect you to have to talk a lot if you don't want to. Again, most conventions people do try and be fairly chill. If there are always people who want to cause drama, because most of the people who go to these conventions are teenagers, and it is the way that a lot of them operate. But you can always walk away, and if you go to a convention, it is completely worth it if you're into something niche and you want to find other people into that niche thing, because it's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Like I've met a good number of Adventure Zone fans through convention type setups, and I wouldn't have done that any other way. So it's worth giving it a try, and if you're autistic and you want to go to a convention, keep it in mind.
I feel like you're rounding out. I feel like this might be one other thing we should talk about, which is how to interact with cosplayers.
Oh yeah, good point.
I feel like that might be something people wonder about.
Yes, so
and again, neither of us are cosplayers, so we don't know this from personal experience.
Well,
but this
I
is
accidentally cosplayed once.
This is like just stuff I've heard through the internet and stuff. Asking for pictures is fine. Don't photograph people without their permission, even if they're dressed in a really cool costume. Especially don't try to be covert about it, because that's like super creepy.
It's unnerving. Just like worst case scenario, they say, "Oh no, thanks."
Yeah. If they're eating, don't bother them. Like, don't...
If it's the kind of thing where if you were doing it, you wouldn't be bothered. Like if you're waiting to go to the bathroom or trying to eat something, or clearly like talking to a big group of people already, leave it until they're free.
In that situation, it might be okay to just compliment them, like, "Oh, I really like your cosplay," and then be on your way. But if you want a photograph, wait until they're, already they are ready to interact with people. Then
I mean, if someone has made something themselves, it's always good to go like, "Oh, that's so cool. Where did you get it?" Don't touch other people's cosplay without consent. This is a really big one. If someone has made a prop, don't touch it without asking them. You do not know how fragile it is. You do not know if it costs them a lot of money. Like, they don't know if you're just going to walk off with it.
The last thing you want is to, put your hand on someone's, like, amazing electronic, massive scythe and have it crumble to pieces in your hand.
Tom, we're asking you. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't even realize. I was thinking about something else.
Yeah, but that happened to Tom Scar. He did pay for it. I need to make this clear. He did pay for it.
I was thinking about, like, when we were queuing outside an event, there was someone, probably us, a video game character, I don't know, or an anime, but she had this, like, light up giant scythe that had, like,
it was from Ruby.
No, this was way before Ruby.
Oh, God.
Because this was, like, a blue thing. This was, like, many years ago.
But, yeah, they had a light up scythe, and what happened?
Nothing. I'm just thinking about, like, wouldn't it be terrible if I touched it and it fell apart?
Like, I did see a woman, again, full Mary Poppins on the carousel costume, including the really, like, delicate lace umbrella. It's like, God, I wouldn't want to be in a crowd with that. Could you imagine if it got broken? I would be devastated. But that's the thing, like, don't touch their stuff, don't touch them, don't act like you know them the second you meet them just because they're dressed as a character you like.
Yeah.
There is a problem, and I think most people understand not to do this, is people showing up and acting like the person is the character they're cosplaying.
Yeah.
And being really familiar, and they do not know you. You are a stranger, and this is a real world. You can't just go up and be like, hey, it's you, whoever. Because, like, not everyone is comfortable doing that kind of instant fun, like, costume stuff. Some people are. It's that whole rule of conventions Deadpool thing where guys who dress up as Deadpool love fucking about and making fun insider jokes with everyone. But, like, they don't necessarily want to have attention drawn to them just because they're dressed up. Some people just really like it as a hobby and don't really want attention drawn to them.
Yeah.
I
think the people who enjoy the role-playing stuff, I feel like a good way to suss them out is if you go, oh my god, it's X character. And
it's Waluigi.
If they respond in character, then obviously they are fine with, joking around in character. And if they respond as themselves, then just treat them like the person dressed up as the character.
Yeah, it's a good rule to have. Like, it's like that Vine of somebody yelling across the room, Waluigi! And he turns and goes, wow! Like, that's how you know someone's in for, like, doing the costume thing. I will say, don't assume someone's in costume. They might not be. I accidentally cosplayed as someone from Persona 5 because I happened to have the same headphones and hair and glasses, and someone very much assumed that I was going for a hug. It was terrible. Don't know who that character is, still don't. But, like, it was a bad time for me and all involved. If it's like a low-effort cosplay, do not assume it's cosplay.
Yeah.
And if it's a high-effort cosplay, do not assume that it gives you free license to, like, do whatever around them.
Yeah. Now I'm just imagining a scenario where it's the opposite. We're like, oh my god, I love your Hellboy cosplay. What are you talking about? This isn't a costume. You're being really weird right now.
I have a skin condition. That's the other thing. If you are in a convention and there are people who have clear disabilities, obvious rules, but I feel like they need to be said because a lot of people are dumb about it. Do not stare at them. Let them pass through easily. If I know it's a narrow pass through all the tables, still get out of the way of the wheelchair. I have seen way too many kids in wheelchairs who are like done up their wheelchair in a special costume, and obviously it takes up a lot of space, and people will get mad that they're trying to get through the convention they also paid to go to. Just give people space.
It ticks me off when it's like adults getting mad at children. It's like,
it's always adults getting mad at children.
Obviously, because...
So why did you even come if you can't fit? It's like, that's not really their problem. They were told they could come, they can come. Like, don't be a dick. I will also say if you are wanting to meet people and there is not specific times for meeting people, it's better to go early. It's always better to go to conventions first thing because they tend to get bigger as the day goes on.
And sweatier.
And it's also harder to get things that you would like. If it's a really popular art print, for example, it will go pretty early in the day and they don't always have the capacity to restock things.
Yeah.
Do not get frustrated at sellers if they can't do things for you that you would like them to do, if they can't give you a fresh version of something because the version you have is slightly off, if they can't give you perfect change, if they can't do XYZ. It's a very difficult situation. They're basically no more set up than somebody at a school fair would be. Mm-hmm. So you have to be understanding.
Yeah, a lot of these people are, just operating out of the booth of their own car.
Yeah.
And very low fi. Here's another thing. This is unrelated. If you see, someone has printed their own book and, it's a sort of single edition. If you ever think about buying it, just buy it because you're never going to see that book again. Mm-hmm. Or comic book again. So if you're even consider, do I want it? Or should I waste my money on that? Buy it because you are probably going to regret it otherwise.
It is the law of conventions. If you see something that's really cool that you're like, oh, I'd really want that, but I'm just going to do a quick pass around the convention hall first. It will be gone when you get back.
Yeah.
It will be gone.
You're never going to see it again.
It is the thing of, if you want to get stuff cheap and you just want to see around what's left, at the end of the convention, a lot of people will suddenly drop their prices a lot because they don't want to carry all their stuff home. But again, do not assume that you're going to be able to get anything specific. Don't save stuff at tables if you can because it causes so much backup for people who work there. If you want to pick up a big prop, then you can do it. But try and set up a system so the people at the table aren't going to get confused.
Yeah.
Try and give them your number or something so they can call you to come collect it when they want to leave. Don't
have an empty bag, a tote bag or something ready to go.
Yeah, if you're getting giant stuff, be aware that you're going to have to lug it around a convention hall.
Yeah.
Be aware you're going to have to take it in public. Please don't bring fake weapons on public transport. Please God. They had to ban them on the tube one year. Please stop bringing very real looking guns on public transport. Please, if you are going to something that's kind of intimidating and scary, please keep in mind that you might be going to the convention around children. People at the convention are expecting
Or just
that.
people who don't know that there's a big nerd con going on.
Yeah, it's the thing of like just try and be respectful as someone who's going to a convention that a lot of people won't understand or just trying to get on with their day. So like, don't buy into the whole I gotta rush to get there with everyone else. Just get there when you can get there. Don't start being a dick about it. I think that's everything.
Yeah.
Like, conventions are still a long way off, unfortunately. But I think it's a good thing to try and prepare for if it's something you've always wanted to try. Because something tells me once things are back to normal and we're in our first proper cycle of conventions, and I don't mean dribs and drabs of ones taking the risk. I mean the first proper, it's all good. Conventions are going to have a big upward swing, I think.
I think so too.
Because suddenly everybody who's like, well, I don't really know if I want to go, is going to have that idea. And they are worth checking out. Support local artists. You should do that. Go to local cons, go to conventions for stuff you aren't necessarily interested in. Just check them out. Like, you will be pleasantly surprised. I've been to several anime and manga conventions despite not having a massive interest in those two things. And I've always walked out happy I went, having found something that I found really interesting. So it's totally worth it. And you will find like-minded people, like with Tom Scar and ASDF movie. ASDF movie is a really good example of like a community that is based around something that is completely, utterly referenceable. There is no grey space around it, and that's great. And I honestly, normally we do a thing like, is this good for autistic people or bad? I don't think you can really judge that I like Trains guy as an autistic character.
Because it's not a character, it's a joke.
It's a joke. But I think if you want to look for a community that's at least attempting to make accommodations for autistic people, I think Tom Scar's a really good first step example of how people should be handling these things, of people going that extra mile and making that effort to make it comfortable. So if you do go to a convention and it happens to be one that Tom Scar's at in the future, you should give it a look because he does make a lot of effort to try and make it comfortable for you. And I think it's worth giving it a try.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
rounding out,
shall we round out? This was Spectrum Projection with your hosts Hannah and Tilda. Our theme music is Summer Longing by Tilda. Send us suggestions for future topics to spectrumprojection@gmail.com or our Twitter and Facebook pages at SpecProjPodcast. Thanks!
bye!